I would like to thank our partner and special guests, Ivan and Ben, from 5CA for coming in to deliver this webinar on how to succeed with online applications and land your dream work from home job. So today, you will not only learn your side of the process, but you'll get an exclusive tour on what happens in the company's HR side as soon as you send your application. And a few words about our partner. 5CA is a global outsourcing partner providing remote customer service, patient agents, and actionable insights. They have been a fully work from home company for over a decade now, and currently they employ people from over 40 different countries. They provide offshore customer support in more than 10 languages. And for some of the biggest tech clients in the market, for example, AMD, Epic Games, optimizing customer journeys with tailor-made customer service is a part of their motto. So if you believe you could be a part of this amazing team, you'll now have a chance to hear exclusively from 5CA how to succeed in every step of their online application process and land your dream work from home job.
Hi everyone, how you guys doing? Hope you're doing great. So let's get going. This webinar slash presentation slash workshop, however you want to call it, it's going to be mostly focused on getting you guys some insights on how recruitment processes are done and how applying for jobs is done on a fully remote environment. As you all probably know by now, remote environments are here to stay. They're the way of the future. And many people don't have experience on how to apply for a job or how exactly the process works when it comes to getting a job fully online, right? So as we've been doing this for a very long time and we've developed our systems and optimized them to make them as streamlined as possible, what we're going to share is our scoop, the way we do things, right? So this is mostly applicable to most companies that are starting to do this, but it is mostly centered on how we view the experience and how we tailor it to be as good as we can. And also to let you know why 5CA is doing this better than their competitors at the moment and why it's so fun to work here and to get started here, right? So just a little bit more about ourselves. I'm Ivan. This is Ben. Hi, Ben. Say hi.
G'day,
g'day. We're part of 5CA for quite a bit. I've been here for almost a year now. I work in the talent attraction department, more specifically, I'm a talent advocate or talent sourcer. My job, if I were to give you an elevator pitch, is basically try to get people engaged, try to get people excited about coming to work for us, people that don't know what 5CA is, that have never experienced the word work, and yeah, basically get to find those rare talent like yourselves that live in a different country, speak several languages, want to do something with them, and they don't know that they could do this.
Yeah, my name is Ben, and I've been with 5CA for almost 6 years now in a variety of different roles, but specifically where Ivan looks at getting people engaged through the application process. Once they're in the door, then that's when I kick into gear. So I'm really involved in employee engagement, specifically also our onboarding processes. So that's what I hope to address with all of you today, give you a little bit of insight into what it will look like once you make it through the application process.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit more of a detailed background on what we're going to be doing, this webinar is going to be divided into 5 sections, more or less, right? We're pretty flexible about these things. So if at any point you guys, when we give you question time, you want to ask anything about it and we don't get to talk about some things, that's perfectly okay. First, we'll talk about the remote application process, how applying itself is, how it looks like on your side, what should you expect, what questions are you probably going to have when you get started. Then you'll get to see our perspective on it. It's more like, what are we looking for in a candidate? What can you do to stand out? Why do we do things the way we're doing them right now? Then Ben will explain to you how your first day at 5CA is, how the experience is as a whole, why it's tailored that way, and from our perspective, why we have a focus on growing and improving this experience and making sure that people have fun working here basically at 5CA. So let's get started with your first look at 5CA, right? So let's say we finish this webinar, you're like, wow, this is amazing, I want to apply. You go to our mini site in Europe Language Jobs, you click one of our ads and you apply, right? You will probably in quite a few days, probably even less, get this email where basically we introduce ourselves as a recruitment team. In this email in particular, I had found a person to work for 5CA. So they had spoken with me before, but I had introduced them to the company, and my coworker Leah was basically taking over and explaining exactly the offer. One of the things that cause a lot of uncertainty for people normally is, so what exactly am I going to be doing, right? So right from the get-go, you're going to get that address on your very first email. We're going to explain to you the blurred parts are obviously things that are sensitive information, which is why they're blurred, but you basically get that information and explain what project you're working for, what schedule you're going to be in. You can note there that it says CEST. We always try to accommodate for your schedule depending on where you're living in the world, but you always get exactly what time slot you would be working, what your days off would be, what channels you would be supporting. So if you do customer support on the phone, if you do it on the email, location is almost always remote. We do have offices, but most of our agent staff works from home, like I do. You can see my lovely blurred house right now. Yeah, and basically you get all the information that you need to know, okay, this is what I'm getting into for starters, right? And you get a few steps on what's next. Some of the steps that follow it are going to be making sure that you have a computer that's capable of working at 5CA. You have you meet the technical requirements. This is an extensive language test that takes about 30 minutes per language that you would like to support in. And after that, there's 2 interview processes. So you do a first interview where we get to know you better, and then you do a second interview where we talk about more the project you'll be supporting, your idea on moving forward, what you would like to get out of 5CA, and what we would be expecting from you, basically. This means that, at this stage, most people are like, okay, so I've gotten this email, right? So is this it? Is this the only thing that I can do at 5CA, right? You've chosen this project for me. You've chosen this language or this schedule for me. Is this it? And this is going to be a recurring motto during the webinar, but basically, no. Ask. If you have a problem with something, if you have a question, if you want to know more, just ask us, okay? This is no different than if you were in an office doing an interview and you were to ask the interviewer a question on the spot. Just write us an email. Hey, this schedule doesn't quite work for me, or hey, I saw that there's this really cool project that you support and I would like to know if I could fit there, or as we say 2 questions down, my computer's not up to par. What could I do so that I'm a match for you guys, right? So the most important thing is that you feel that this is a 2-way conversation, right? We're happy with you and you're happy with what we're offering, right? This ties beautifully into the second question, which is, why do we collect all this information, right? Why do we make you click as privacy agreement? Why do we request this data, this technical information, your language tests, these things? And the reason is because since we're not doing it in an office, we need to make sure that you are comfortable working here and that you're prepared to work here, right? That your computer is ready, that you speak the languages that you say you speak to the level that would be required to support in a language. Normally it's native level or close to, or as close to as possible. And yeah, it's a part for us to get to know you better, right? It's not only specific things like language skills, it's also personality type. If you like it here, what you're thinking about the interview process, all these things are important for us. All this information is very important for us to get to know you better, right? Which is why you can have a question about like, why is this more exhaustive or more intensive than, normal processes on offices? But that's the reason why, right? So, and what happens if I don't quite match? What happens if my English is not good enough, or my Spanish is not good enough, or my computer is not good enough? Ask again, like, hey, I didn't get the level that I was supposed to get for this language, but I do know this other language. But is there any interesting projects that I could apply for here? Or I don't have a computer right now that meets the requirements, but I'd be willing to get one. What can we do, right? Like, we're always flexible. This is not a black or white process, basically. And then the burning question that everybody gets is, when can I expect a reply, right? These processes work much differently than anything done in an office, where you would pretty much out of the interview know if you've got the job or not. This is much more, delayed. It can take up to several weeks to know how your application is progressing, and that is normal. And the reason why is because once you get, you get to the interview processes, I'll go back to this one in a bit, we do an extensive check, right? So our job is to make sure that your experience is tailored to the project that you are going to end up working in, right? So we make sure that we're handling your data according to GDPR compliance, that your data is not breached, that your data is kept safe and secure. We're making sure that when you're answering those questionnaires and you're being honest about them, that you match the kind of project that we're looking for you. And most importantly, we're looking out like to make sure that you will be comfortable being a person at 5CA, right? So that is the reason why it can take 3-4 days for you to hear back from us on a certain thing. If you feel like there's a delay and you should get a reply, again, the same motto, just ask, send us an email. It's totally fine. It doesn't affect your application. Hey, I've been wondering, how am I doing? Is there a problem? Should I have gotten an email? It's totally okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the things that we hear most about the application process is that due to all of the extensive checks that we do need to perform, it is a little bit different to a typical office environment. It can lead to extended wait times. And so our advice in that situation is to not be afraid of us. It is, like Ivan mentioned, a two-way conversation. So if you need, or if you would like some more information about the status of your application, then at least here at 5CA, you're always encouraged to reach out.
Precisely. So once you've gotten through that extensive veto process, or you've gotten through the ring of fire, so to speak, you get to the interview, right? And you say, oh, I know a little bit about this, right? I've done interviews before. I know my way around interviews. Probably that's the case, right? The reality is that these are a little bit different than regular interviews, and you have to have the tools for the job, right? So you'll get a booking. Just click that blue button there, that blue link. You get a booking just like you would in a phone call to book an interview in an office. And you have a Microsoft Teams link. Without Microsoft Teams link, it just at the scheduled time, it will open up and you have a conversation with the person, right? Everything is scheduled and streamlined so that you don't have to wait for anybody. In most cases, you'll receive confirmation emails so that you don't forget. Like, we understand that it's very different, that there's not this anticipation of going somewhere. So we also account for that, and we make sure that you're ready for the interview and that, you're ready to give it your best, right? These interviews usually last 30-25 minutes. They're much more brief than normal interviews, sometimes even 15 minutes if you're very to the point. And it's just to get a vibe for you. It's just to get to know you better, so you get to know us better. You can ask any questions you want. And yeah, it's also very important, something we mentioned there, is that you have to be prepared, right? You have to have a proper webcam. You have to wear your headset or your headphones, right? So, and you have to be in a quiet place so that nobody can disturb you, just like you were in a normal office, to have a normal conversation and not be, distracted by anything going on around you.
I think that's probably one big piece of advice I can give to anyone watching here when they're faced with an online interview is please check your equipment beforehand. I think there are a lot of things that can be forgiven. You can blur out a background. It doesn't need to be super tidy, I guess. But one thing that is, I guess, doesn't leave the best impression is when you haven't tested your equipment beforehand. There's nothing more awful than arriving at your interview in the nick of time, only to discover that your camera isn't working or that your interviewer can't hear you because your mic isn't working. So really test that hardware beforehand.
One of the things you can do is just Skype a friend for like 20 seconds. Hey, do you hear me fine? Do I look fine? Is this that I'm wearing nice? Like, just, basic things that you would do. You would check yourself in a mirror before going to an interview, kind of the same thing, right? So yeah, go ahead, ask us anything about this section. There'll be more to come, of course. We'll talk about the intro day, but if you have any questions specific about the application process and how we're handling that, or the interview process, fire away.
Come at us.
Guys, don't be shy.
Not to worry either, that we will have another Q&A section later on. Oh, we have a question here about part-time. Do you want to take that, Ivan, or shall I jump in?
Yes, go ahead. Go for it.
So at the moment, most of our positions are full-time. So that's, depending on your local jurisdiction, 40 hours a week. However, the business is currently investigating flexi shifts. So part-time positions is something that we're looking to open up more broadly. We do have some at the moment, but we really are actively investigating how we can introduce more flexibility, both for the business and for our applicants. So yes, we do have some. and we will have more in the future as well. Yes, Bolivia, anywhere in the world, anywhere you can get a solid internet connection, you can apply for a position at 5CA. If you want to move countries, so this is responding to Wendy's question, if you want to move from one country to another, generally this isn't something that's standard procedure. So if you were to receive a position at 5CA and then you were planning to relocate, this is something that you need to indicate to your direct manager with plenty of advance notice, so that we can figure out if there is a position available for you in that country, and to also make sure we check all the technical requirements for that position as well. Ooh, we're going quickly. What else have we got? The fields that we're involved in. So mostly our clients are all in either the gaming industry, the consumer electronics industry, or the financial services industry. So we're talking about gaming publishers, gaming houses, hardware such as headsets, peripheral devices, but also things like online vouchers and online payment platforms.
Do you use a program to evaluate CVs? Depends what you mean by that. We look at every CV individually. We take, we value the value of people. So we just look at it and we look at your CV at face value, basically. So we like to meet everyone we can, if possible, if the person matches the profile and they're happy and engaged to work. So no, there's no AI parsing your CVs.
Nisa, your question, and apologies if I butcher anyone's names here. I'm just going to do my best and you'll have to accept my apologies in advance. Regarding the equipment being not up to scratch. So if your equipment isn't up to scratch, then we can at least let you know where you've fallen short and what kind of equipment you'd need to get there.
Do you have jobs for Spanish native speakers? I don't speak English very well. Yeah, we do. We do, as a company policy, have a focus on communications in English. So that means that oftentimes you will speak to your coworkers. Every internal communication is done in English to facilitate, because we have people from so many different countries. So we do have positions for Spanish speakers, but speaking English to a reasonably good level is a requirement, because you have to be able to, talk to your peers who will probably be from very different parts in the world than you are, right? So that's a little bit the scoop on it. Yeah,
I think that's a really important point, that while obviously English may not be your working language client facing, it is our internal language. So unfortunately, we do have a pretty hard requirement that your English does need to be up to par so that you can participate in all of our community communications. There was a question here about labor contracts and social security. The overwhelming majority of our positions are freelance positions, which means you are in charge of all social security payments. There are some countries where we have local subsidiaries, but those are quite few at this stage. We are looking to expand, but yeah, the overwhelming majority of the positions are considered freelancer positions where you're in charge of your social security and taxes.
Can you work from HP as well as a Mac? Sorry about that. Can you work from HP as well as a Mac? Yes. Thankfully, we have a great team of developers that make sure that almost all of our internal tools work flawlessly with whatever environment you use. So you can use HP, you can use Mac, you can use PC. I would have to check for Linux, but I assume it would.
I'm pretty sure we have a couple of agents who are using Linux, so I think it must work. Yeah.
Of course we would. Yeah, so basically, these kinds of questions are the kind of questions we love. Doing the interview process is a great example of a thing to ask. Hey, I have a Mac computer, would this be okay? And the reality is, yeah, for the majority of projects, it would be perfectly okay.
There's a question there about educational background. So I don't think I guess a degree is necessary in any way. What we're more interested in is your language abilities, first and foremost. Are you competent in the languages that you say you are? And we do have testing to confirm that. And second, your aptitude and your levels of empathy when it comes to customer service. And if you are applying for a technical position, then we also test your technical abilities as well. So if you're applying for a really hardcore job, providing technical support for a client such as AMD, who, for example, do processors and all this kind of thing, then we also will test that knowledge. We don't necessarily need to see a degree. You can be completely self-taught, but we will check that knowledge. No, no TEFL exam is necessary. We do all of our own testing in-house. If you're looking for specific language opportunities, I think it would be best just to take a look at the careers website. Maybe, Ivan, we can drop that link in there, and that way you can see all of the open positions. And yes, there are plenty of opportunities to grow in the company. I think maybe that would be a great segue, and we can maybe pause this conversation and reopen the Q&A later and jump into the next section.
Yeah, sounds super great. Oh, sorry about that. That was, I'm spoiling you guys. They shouldn't be doing this. There we go. Okay, let's go.
All right, awesome. So yes, I wanted to speak to you a little bit today about our onboarding processes and also a little bit about the culture and environment that we're building at 5CA. Being a remote first organization, it's a little bit different from your typical bricks and mortar. But before we get that far, let me just walk you through our first day, and we call that here intro day. Now, intro day has a couple of different purposes. It's not just about finding your feet. But we also have things like compliance purposes that we need to check. So a lot of HR stuff. We need to check a variety of different accounts, but perhaps most importantly, it's your real introduction to our culture. So you would have during your interview process come into contact with a little bit about our communication style and the way that we work. And intro day is a real opportunity for us to drive that home and really introduce you to the community that we're building here. 5CA's structure internally can be a little bit isolating at times, because you have first the work from home component. So you're seeing it alone at home. You do have your team, but the teams are often divided into their individual projects or accounts. So we mentioned some of those brands that we work with, some of those clients. So sometimes when you're in that project, you don't get a lot of contact with the other accounts. So intro day, we use to try and introduce you to as many different people from as many different accounts as possible, so that you can really get a taste of not just your project, but also 5CA as a whole. So intro day, I just want to run you quickly through, I guess, the structure of intro day. It always begins with a round of introductions. We try and make that as informal as possible. So a little bit about your background. We try and skip, I guess, the professional background. We just go straight into the interesting stuff by playing a game called Two Truths One Live, where we basically ask you to provide little bits of fun facts about yourself. And that can often lead to some very interesting conversations. Once those introductions are done, we try and get some of the nitty-gritty out of the way, so we'll check all the different accounts. Most of our services inside 5CA rely on a single sign-on authorization. So once you've accessed one account and you have something open in your browser, most of the other systems will just open up automatically, but there are some that we like to check. And intro day takes place on a Friday, and that's done by design. That means that if anything goes wrong with any of those account checks, we have the full weekend to rectify those issues before you start with your project training on Monday. Once those account checks are done, there's a whole bunch of e-learning, and it covers a whole range of different topics. You'll look at things like payment processes, HR policies, our communications charter, so which channels to use and when. We'll cover information security, data retention policy, and of course, as you may have noticed is dear to my heart, we'll also cover some of that real basic cultural stuff. So we'll take a look at our core values and our culture guide, and also a little bit about the history and development of our organization too. Periodically throughout the e-learning, you'll have some knowledge checks just to make sure that you're staying up to speed. And we also realize that the e-learning is full of information and can be overwhelming. So we also provide an online tour. Sounds a little bit weird, but we basically have an online environment, an intranet, where all of the information that's covered on intro day plus more is held and stored for everyone to access. So we give you an online tour of this space so you know where to find all of the tidbits that you will find most useful, and also some extra stuff as well for the extra curious. And then we can complete that all up with a wrap-up activity. Now let's have a look at, I guess, why we think 5CA is a little bit different. So we've spoken a lot about intro day and what we're trying to build when it comes to an experience. And that experience does not end on intro day. We really try and run with it. There was a question before from one of you about career opportunities. And so I'd love to explain a little bit more about one method that we have for growing our in-house talent, and that is our career boot camp. So the Career Bootcamp was a 5-week event where our customer service agents were put into small teams of 5 agents apiece, And then we had 5 different departments who provided assignments for them. And these assignments were based on real data, real tasks that those support departments face. So we're talking HR, data and analytics, talent acquisition even. And then they completed those assignments. And then at the end of that 5-week experience, those assignments were graded, and we actually had a big Eurovision moment where we revealed all our winners in a ranking. So we had a fun element, and there were some prizes to be won, but those participants also really got to taste the different departments and have the opportunity to network with those people in those departments and see if it's anything for them. We also have a bunch of different communication channels as well. We have a weekly newsletter, which is about a 30-70 split between hardcore business news and 70% special interest stories, where we pick out achievements from members of our community or maybe different events that the projects have taken part in and try and showcase that so you can learn a little bit more about your colleagues. We also have a fortnightly town hall. It's actually taking place right now, and I'm not attending. I feel very naughty. But that's about an hour-long presentation, and it's designed in the style of a news bulletin. So keeping in line with our rather informal vibe, our informal culture. We first have a news that's done a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We have an interview with a 5CA personality, and then we have little presentations that are done by different people who have recently achieved something of significance to the business or want to present a challenge that they're working on. Now, our main communications platform is Teams. It's a really convenient platform for collaborating online, especially when you've got a co-located team in different places in the world. But it's very businessy. We like to keep the business on one channel, and so we have separate channels to introduce the fun components. We have Yammer, which I guess I have to say it's a little bit like a corporate Facebook, but don't let that put you off. We also work with a lot of gaming clients. So of course, it only makes sense that we have our own Discord server as well. So we have all of these different communications channels, and we also have support structures in place as well. Working remotely is very different to working in an office. So we really try and give you an extra bit of support. And one example of that is our network of trusted contact persons. This is a group of about a dozen volunteers at 5CA who have been with the organization long enough to really understand our internal structure and our culture. And basically, if you were in an office and something had happened in your personal life and it was affecting your work, your colleagues around you would notice your behavior, would notice your mood and know to come up and be like, hey, what's going on? How can we help? How can we support you? That's not the case in an online environment, or not always. So this network of people, they're there so that you can reach out to them if something's affecting your work, and they can give you advice on maybe who you should speak to, or how other people have dealt with similar problems in the work from home space, this kind of thing. So it's really about making sure that even though you're not in the same physical space, you know that you have a huge support network of colleagues around you. And of course, we have a whole bunch of fun events as well. So we have different competitions, online parties. We've had a pride party. You would have seen me done wonderfully up in drag. We had a heavy metal party. You would have seen me beautifully done up with my face paint. It's all happened. It's all good fun. I can only recommend it. So we really try and build this global culture through our engagement offerings. And like I've driven home, that's really just trying to make sure that this culture is inclusive as possible, because remote work is not for everyone, but we can do our best to make it as positive and welcoming as we can. And to make that happen, we have a dedicated engagement team. So I'm one of about 5 people inside 5CA who have dedicated full-time positions to making sure that our community is inclusive and supportive as possible. So I think that really makes us stand out. And we never rest on our laurels. So I mentioned intro day a lot at the first half of my presentation, but it's not static. It's already undergoing redevelopment. We're expanding it from 1 day into a 2-day experience. So it was originally 5 hours over 1 day. It's going up to a full day. We'll be including not just all of those things that I spoke about earlier, but also an extra kind of module that takes you into our industry. So the business process outsourcing industry really gives you some business awareness. And then a second day where we take our culture, take specifically our core values and apply them to the role that you'll be working in. So we give you real practical examples of what our core values translate to into your day-to-day work. So I hope that sounds enticing. I hope you can see that building a online, a virtual workplace is far more work than maybe it seems. But if you get it right, you can really build a community out of a workspace. So I think that's the point where I'd also like to open it up for questions again.
It's always fun to talk to Ben because I end up finding out new things that we're doing inside 5CA. And I'm like, oh, I haven't tried that out. I need to check that out. It's super good.
Alrighty. I see a question here about payment calculation. So payment is hourly for most of our positions. Some of the senior management positions, because obviously commitments can vary on week to week depending on the client needs. Those can be done on a monthly basis, but most positions are an hourly rate.
Ben and Ivan, sorry. Maybe you still want to answer the same question, because we have been keeping track of the questions during the presentation, and we do have some that we maybe can read to you, so you just don't scroll down enough. And,
Sounds good to me.
There was a question about the time zones. So when you, depending on the country, so how does it affect the employee?
So it really depends on the market you're servicing. So it is a little bit independent of your location. It really depends on the position that you've been hired for. So for example, we have Spanish speakers in Europe who are supporting the Latin American market, and they may have to work hours that are reflecting those requirements. But I mean, it's also vice versa. So there are a whole bunch of different shifts depending on the market and languages that you're supporting. So it's not based on your location, but based on the market that you'll be supporting.
Okay, thank you.
Just to give a little bit of insight into that, the cool thing about it is that teams are structured not only in the language they support, but also for most accounts on the schedule they have. So you're never alone. That is something that Alison was mentioning. One of in the chat, she was like, my job, can feel a little lonely. I can speak from experience. I have never, not a single day of my year here, have felt lonely at 5CA. There's always someone to talk to. That's one of the coolest things about this job.
That's so nice. And another question was about the contract. Is it customized for what laws? The country that the company is located, or the country that the candidate is located? How does it work, if you know?
So like I mentioned, the overwhelming majority of our collaboration agreements are freelance agreements, and they are based on the freelancer's location.
Okay. And then we have this question about the opportunities to grow when you start to work.
Yeah, so like I tried to mention with the career bootcamp, we really try and sell and promote internal growth. So the bootcamp is just one method that we do that. We have a dedicated careers page internally where we list all of the different departments and career trajectories. We outline the skills that you would need to have, and we also have an internal learning management system called the 5CA Academy. And in that academy, we have different modules that you can take to progress in those different trajectories. So within that career page, we list all of the modules that will help you succeed in those roles. Lots of our positions are internal promotions, and we really, really thrive on that. I mean, Ivan, I presume you also probably came from an agent position, right?
I was customer support agent, then I was specialist, and then, yeah, we all started, or most of us started, answering tickets and picking up phone calls, and, we moved on to things we liked.
Exactly.
There's a question here from Nisa. Are there opportunities for overtime? The view that 5CA mostly has on overtime is that we don't try to enforce it. It's not an enforcement. It's not people work the hours that they set on their agreement. And usually no more. But if some people want to work overtime, there's procedures for that. There's requests for that. And yeah, you can submit overtime, and usually it's not a problem.
There's a question here about African regions. Yes. Like I mentioned before, if you have a solid internet connection and you meet our technical requirements, your location is perfectly acceptable wherever you are in the world.
Do you give any training before starting work? Yes, I can speak only for the project I was in, because the length varies depending on the account you're supporting. But on the Epic project, which is what I received 2 weeks of fully paid training, which basically all I did was sit for 8 hours and learn as much as I could. so that when I got to do customer support, I was ready. And from day one, I was like at 100% capacity. It was great.
Yeah, it really does depend on which client that you're going to be working for. So in Ivan's case, Epic Games, you would know from their very popular game Fortnite, that training is relatively quick. It is fully paid. But for example, we also have another client called CCC, and they specialize in copywriting. So that's one of our financial services clients. And they have quite a technical project, quite a difficult product to use, or at least to navigate in the back end. And so they have a full 8 weeks of training. So it really depends on which account you land.
Is there an age restriction? Not to my knowledge, no, there's not. I've had coworkers in the 50s, and we're like, we do, I think Ben and everyone in engagement does a great job in making sure everyone has their space to speak and to feel comfy. And yeah, you meet people from all sorts of 5CA. That's the cool thing about it.
That being said, please make sure you're of legal working age in your respective country. We won't be accepting any 9-year-olds. That's not happening. Question, how is the payment? That really depends on your location. It was the fairest system that we could put in place. So it will depend primarily on your location and then your skills. And when we talk about skills, we generally mean your language competencies. Though some of our more technical projects also have extra surcharge attached to them because of their heavy technical requirements. So it's very hard to make a blanket statement there because, yeah, it really depends on a whole range of different factors. We pay only in USD for our freelancers. We do, like I mentioned, have some subsidiaries, and in those cases, we pay in local currency.
What happens if the computer's not up to standard? Yeah, just ask away. Like, hey, is this good enough? Like, if you apply and you basically have to upload a file saying what your computer specifications are. We guide you through the entire process. It's not a hard rule. And yeah, if your computer for whatever reason is not up to par, we can have a conversation about that, right? That's the whole thing. It's not a one-way interview.
Question here about open applications. I believe that we do have an open application option on the careers website.
Yes, so we have a mini site with your language jobs where we have some of our job positions. Obviously, because of how 5CA operates, is many more positions that you could apply for. So I encourage you that if you speak any of the languages that are listed in our mini site, go apply right there, your language jobs. And if anything else past that, I'm going to write an email in the chat. This is our email for any referrals. It's join@5ca.com. Okay, so anything that is not on the Europe Language Jobs mini site, you can just send us an email about it. Be like, hey, I speak, I don't know, let me think of an exotic language. I speak traditional Chinese and Cantonese and French on my off time because I'm amazing. What do you have for me? I'll be like, well, let's have a conversation because we probably do have projects for you. How much hours? Mostly people work full time. We're looking to part-time arrangements, yeah, but yeah, mostly full time, 40 hours. Depends on, well, if you live in a country where full time is less than that, obviously we comply to that.
Marina, did you have any more questions that you had collated during the presentations?
Just 1 second. Let us check. This last one is very good though.
And Bogdan, just to let you know, we check using a service, I believe it's called Piplet.
Yes.
So it's a platform we use to check language proficiency. It's about, I guess, a 20 to 30 minute test overall. I was actually, I tested it. and it's very, very competent. So when we first introduced the tool, I tested it on myself, both for my English and my German, just to see where I would land. And I can tell you it's a very, very good tool. So don't try to fool us. If you say that you speak a language fluently, we will be checking it and we will let you know if it's not up to our standard. And bear in mind, casual conversation does not always equate to language proficiency. In some of our projects, you'll be dealing business to business. And so it means that we need a standard where your orthography is also up to par. Machine learning and data analytics. Yes, we do have a dedicated data and analytics team in-house who help us create reports for our clients and give us insights into projections. And all other cool stuff. We're actually building some bots to help reduce some of the stresses on our agents during peaks. So there's a whole lot of great stuff that's happening there. And like we mentioned, if you get your foot in the door, then we do really try and source other positions internally. So I can only recommend trying to get into an agent position, then exploring the other positions that become available for you inside 5CA.
That being said, currently there's a data scientist and data engineer positions open on the career page. And I'm currently looking for you, so please hit me up.
Time to hire. Can you answer that one, Ivan?
Yeah. Let's say for a customer position, this all depends on where you're applying. Obviously, like most of the questions we answer, we support 40 countries, so it's kind of hard to just say 2 days for 4 weeks, right? My advice to you is reply to things as fast as you can, and you can probably get in through the door in like a week, week and a half. Before training, of course, then you have to do training. Some projects do require extensively more testing. Some projects are a lot faster. My advice is always, if you're interested, one of the things we look for is in how engaged you are with the application, right? If you reply to our emails, if you ask questions, if you've checked out our page, just go on the mini site at Europe Language Jobs, give it a read, see what you think about the company, about the culture. And if you really like it, Google us, find out what we're about, pass this webinar. And yeah, just if you're engaged, one week and a half. Hopefully,
right.
Hopefully. If not,
I also want to, Mia or Maya, I saw your question. I can't is the short answer. What I can tell you is that in my experience in 6 years with 5CA, I have never seen a pay cut. I think it is not exactly ethical, and I would be very surprised if it were ever to happen. But obviously, I'm not the CEO, so I cannot guarantee it. It is the nature of the freelancer beast. But yeah, like I said, it's never, ever in my experience have I seen a case of that happening inside 5CA, and I would be shocked if it were to happen. When it came to the training question, again, the training depends on the project. So some trainings are completed within 2 weeks. The longest training that we have for our most complicated account is a full 8 weeks.
And as about the pay part, yeah, as far as I know, all projects are paid for training. Yes. Okay.
Yes, so on our side of the questions that we wrote down, we don't have any more. I don't know if our participants want to ask something else.
No news must be good news.
Yep. Must have been a great webinar if you guys have no questions whatsoever.
Our main payment platform is a platform called Golance. You can just Google it and have a look at it. It connects with a bunch of different payment services to pay out your payments. There is, of course, the exception of those local subsidiaries. So in a local subsidiary, it's a direct bank deposit.
We also do Upwork currently, but we're still working on that. But yeah.
Yes, you can work anywhere in the world and you are paid per hour.
Yes. Okay, guys. One question maybe from us a little bit about your company culture.
Can you give us a little bit of maybe advice from your experience of how people who are used to work in an office environment, and how does that work when they start working fully remotely? Is there something to be aware of, something to keep in mind, something that you need to be prepared? Because I assume before the pandemic, most of us worked from offices and very rarely from home.
Mhm. So I really think the the really best thing that I can give as advice to anyone who's deciding to work from home is to really create a dedicated space and stick to your hours. There's a real risk when you introduce your work into your home environment that the two will bleed into one another. That all of a sudden you'll find yourself checking work emails at 10 o'clock at night, or you'll find yourself trying to do your job from inside your bed. Do not fall into that trap. Create a dedicated space for your work and make sure that when you're in that space, you're only working, and when you're outside of that space, you are not working. Because I think for most of us who are used to a traditional office environment, it's very easy to say, oh, I walk out the door, I've switched off my work brain. You have to really build that for yourself when you're working from home. And if you don't, then it can become really overwhelming. And that's the opposite of what you're trying to achieve when you're working from home. You're trying to cut out that commute. You're trying to build a greater work-life balance. And if you don't create a dedicated workspace, then you're going to fall short of those goals.
Thank you.
We're based in we're based in Utrecht in the Netherlands. I hope I pronounced that okay. Yeah, anyone working from anywhere, basically their location is their home. I have never yet met anyone in real life. I hope to one day, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I know Ben, like he lives in the office next door.
And what do I think makes 5CA different from other remote companies? Well, I mean, you could probably guess that I'm going to answer culture, but I think where that comes from is our people. And I really think that what makes 5CA stand out from all of the other places that I've ever worked is the openness that people have. And we really try and create a space where people can be authentic. So I think in a lot of other businesses and even in remote businesses, there's this pressure to try and conform, whereas here at 5CA, you're invited to be yourself. One of our 5 core values is celebrate your inner unicorn. It sounds cheesy maybe, but it's something that I really, really value. It means that everyone who is here is not only supposed to be their authentic selves, but you're supposed to celebrate it, get behind it. Like I feel like almost everyone at 5CA, and I hope I don't offend anyone with this, but everyone at 5CA is a weirdo, and I love it. It's the best thing ever. I think weirdos are the best, and I'm proud to be one of them, and I'm proud to be surrounded by them. And more weirdos, please.
Is there any annual event to meet 5CA colleagues? Yes and no. So yes, in the sense that yes, we do many things. We've done speedrun competitions of video games streamed. We've done, we do on Discord, we do meetups so we can play the games that we support or the products that we support on a weekly basis. Like your team and you are in constant communication. You do daily meetups, video calls like this one, where you get to see everyone's faces and talk about your daily problems and your struggles and your woes. And honestly, one of the coolest thing about it is that you always find your niche. Like I was like, oh, I don't know about this Yammer thing. I really don't like social media. And I found a sub forum that was like, hey, post your tattoos. And I've got quite a few tattoos. So I was like, hey, these are my tattoos, and I met some people that worked on the same project I did that had an interest in ink that I didn't know they existed. And yeah, you network, you do meet your co-workers and your colleagues on a daily basis, basically.
And just for Maria, yes. So like I mentioned, most of our people are on freelancer agreements unless they're in a country with a local subsidiary, but there's only a small handful of those. So most people are indeed on a freelancer worker agreement. Yes, we're on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn too.
Yep. Same outdated picture for me as you saw before. Yes, my hair is not red anymore. Now it's blue/white. But yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn.
So I think after this webinar concludes, and I can only recommend if what we've spoken about speaks to you and you're interested in exploring the opportunities of 5CA, then check out the careers website. And if you find a position that you like, apply for it. Maybe also check out our actual website if you want to learn a little bit more about the clients that we work with and what we do, who we are. Yeah, get a better feel of us. And if it sounds like something interesting for you, then jump in, give us an application.
There's currently, I think, 5 open positions in the mini site at Europe Language Jobs that we've been posting on the chat. Many more on our careers website. And if you have any specific talent that is not listed there, but you think you could make a difference at 5CA, join at 5CA.com. Keep it business related, please. Don't send me memes, although I would appreciate them. Yeah, join at 5CA.com. Customer support related, data engineering related, anything tech and anything I want to work for you. Join at 5CA.com, careers mini site at Europe Language Jobs. I feel like I'm in an ad or something, you know, like, hey guys, check this cool sponsor. Yeah, that's how I feel sometimes.
So guys, we have one more question.
We do relocations. Yeah, I don't think it's a success metric. I mean, some people work in the office, some people don't. It's just, yeah.
I think that's more to do with those internal opportunities, right? So if you get into an agent role, those are predominantly work from home. And no matter how successful you are as an agent, there probably won't be a position and opening up for a star agent in the office. That being said, you might decide, hey, I really enjoy talent acquisition. I want to grow. I don't just want to be a recruiter. I want to manage the entire talent acquisition team. If you succeed there, then yes, relocation would be possible.
Again, not necessary though. There's plenty of people way up in the company working from home, equally successful, equally happy.
Yeah,
if I were given the chance, I would rather stay home. Thank you. I like it here. Okay,
I think we're probably at the end of time, no?
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yes.
All right, then. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you for all of the wonderful questions. It's better than staring into the silence. So I definitely appreciate that. I've had fun. I thought the questions were really interesting and probing, not just superficial. So thank you for everyone who sent in a question.
I hope we were informative and fair. And yeah, hit us up if you're interested.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming, for answering all the questions. Also, thank you for all the participants for participating in our last webinar or 30-day challenge this year. So we see you in the next events next year. So please keep up with our events. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. I don't know if Vicky wants to say the last word or something else in addition.
All right, so the only thing I want to say is check 5CA on our platform, europelanguagejobs.com. Check their beautiful website as well for more information. Follow us, guys. We are all over social media at Europe Language Jobs, including TikTok. And if anybody has any questions that weren't answered or any questions for 5CA that they need to know, you can send us an email at candidates@Europe Language Jobs. We reply hopefully to everyone, or you can ask us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Europe Language Jobs. You know us. And thank you for coming.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.